Well, good morning, everybody, and I'm going to take a few moments to share with you my pros and cons of owning a Ryker 900. I've bought my 2020 Ryker 900. I've got over 4,000 miles on it now, so I figure I've got some pretty good ideas of what the pros and cons are. And I think I'll start out with the pros. And the first thing I want to tell you is you got the fun factor going on. These things are fun to ride. They're not a motorcycle, and they're not a snowmobile, they're not a go-kart. They are what they are. They're a three-wheeled motorcycle. They are fun to ride, and they're easy to ride. You don't have to have a lot of experience to ride something like this. And as you ride it, you'll gain more experience. The other thing, too, about them is they're an entry-level vehicle, so they're a low-cost vehicle. Now, you can buy a two-wheeled motorcycle for less, and go faster, go further, have a heck of a lot of fun on it. But if you're trying out the three-wheel thing, if it looks attractive to you and something you want to get into, well, these are a pretty inexpensive way to check them out. Now, they are a safe thing to ride. They're stable. Can Am really did their homework on this. They've got some built-in safety features. They've got some safety features that Can Am has put into them that makes them nice to drive, safe to drive. You don't have to worry so much about slick roads or gravelly corners. They're not like a motorcycle, not like a two-wheel motorcycle. So they have a braking system on them that if you set it, say at the econo mode for operation, and you start hot dogging through a corner too fast, well, it'll start braking you so that you don't run a risk of potentially rolling over. I don't know what it would take to roll one of these things over. I've got a feeling you'd have to be working pretty darn hard to do it. Been my experience with two-wheeled motorcycles and now with this three-wheeled Ryker that, sometimes it's easy to tip over, sometimes it's easy to crash, sometimes it's easy to just do the wrong thing at the wrong time and end up with tragic results in some cases. Boy, you'd have to be working at it to do that with one of these. They're a safe ride. Now, the other thing I've noticed here is that anybody spending time on a two-wheeled motorcycle knows that people in cars don't see you. And even when you think they see you, they don't see you. Well, I've noticed people see these things. Don't ask me why. Maybe it's just because they're peculiar looking or new enough on the road or who knows why, but people in cars tend to see these. There's always that element that doesn't see anything and probably shouldn't be on the road to begin with. But people in cars see these things, and that adds to the safety factor. It is a pretty safe vehicle, and I kind of like it. And it has a lot to do to it, the way you ride. And perhaps I don't hot dog around as much on three wheels as I did when I was riding two wheels. But anyhow, people in cars see them. I appreciate that. Getting run over is no fun at all. Now, another pro thing about these is there's a lot of accessories for them out there. And they're fun to accessorize. You can set these things up to just suit your fancy. And you can spend as little or as much money as you want on it. There's a lot of good things out there. A lot of good companies. I can't recommend one over another one. I've dealt with a whole bunch of different companies on different aftermarket parts for them. I've had good success with every one, but one that wasn't so good. The product they sold me just didn't work the way they said. But this is such an obscure little company out of a Asian nation that I will not mention, that I don't think anybody else has to worry too much about it. Now, like I said earlier, just about anyone can ride these, experienced or not. If you've ridden a two-wheel motorcycle, then this isn't going to ride the same as those. But you'll get on one of these, you won't have a problem. If you've never been on a motorcycle before in your life, you can still ride one of these. You don't have to worry about falling off. You don't have to worry about shifting gears. You've got one brake to worry about, one brake pedal to worry about. That's a foot pedal, very much like an automobile. So, depending on your experience level, if you're a complete novice to some old grizzled guy like me that's been on two wheels for a good number of decades, not a problem. Now there's a whole host of really great sites online of Ryker owners that have shared with you their experiences and their thoughts and their pros and cons and everything like that. I highly recommend looking at all of them. I mean, it's just, it's information, but it'll only do you good. But there's also, I've noticed a lot of discussion about, well, are these things powerful enough? Are they fast enough? How do they do? How do they do as far as getting down the road, as far as speed? I can tell you what, these things, at least with mine, now I have no experience with the 600, only the 900, but I can tell you the 900's got plenty of horsepower. It's not a rocket ship. It will go fast, but it's not going to blow your socks off by any means. You can travel highway speeds on them. You can travel freeway speeds on them. There's more than enough power. And there's more than enough power to get out of the road if there's a reason you need to. And anybody that's ever ridden a motorcycle knows some of those times you just need to hit the gas and get out of the way because things are going to hell in a handbasket and you're right in the middle of it. So anyhow, you've got plenty of power. They're not a rocket ship, but they'll go. And the only limiting factor to that is the RPMs of the engine. That's your limiting factor. So not a rocket ship, but definitely got plenty of power. Highway, no problem. Freeway, no problem. Something else that I really found attractive with the vehicle was the adjustable foot pegs and the adjustable handlebars. Handlebars not as much as the foot pegs. Now, being a taller guy, I'm 6'2", weigh 220 pounds, so I'm a little bit bigger than average. Not as big as a lot of people, but not as small as a lot of people either. But anyhow, being able to adjust them foot pegs to where it's comfortable for me, my feet, my legs, to go on a ride, it's great. It's wonderful. And I find on a longer trip, a few hours or more long, I'm not having to move around so much. So those adjustable foot pegs are great. I've actually got a pair of floorboards and road pegs on mine that I picked up from Le Monster Garage. They're very comfortable. They suit me just fine. Now, that's just me. You could be different, probably will be different, but they suit me just fine. Let's see, what else? I know one thing. It's not a bagger, and I appreciate that. I don't know about anybody else, but riding a bagger, if you want a bagger, buy a Spider. Spider makes 2 or 3 different versions of a bagger. And if that's your thing, that's your thing. That's not what I wanted. I wanted something that was not a bagger, so it's not a bagger. Now, my con list is not quite as long as my pro list. Like I said before, these things don't ride like a motorcycle. They ride more like a snowmobile or a go-kart. It's an entry-level vehicle, so you're going to want to make a bunch of upgrades. Now, some of the upgrades that I found specific to my needs were the seat, the shocks, the torsion bar, and the headlights. All of them I upgraded. I found it much more palpable to my liking. The other thing is the brakes are just a little bit softer than I like. I like a firmer brake, but that's just me. And yeah, the plastic on it rattles. After a few miles, it starts rattling. Don't notice it so much at first, but after you get some miles on these things, you notice it and it becomes irritating. The other thing is because you have to run this thing at such high RPMs because it doesn't have a transmission. You're running highway speeds, you're running high RPMs, and that doesn't do your gas mileage any good. It slows your gas mileage down quite a bit. So I don't particularly care for that. I don't know. Well, I can understand why. To keep it inexpensive, they didn't put a transmission in it. I would have, if somebody can develop a transmission for these things, it's going to help out the gas mileage. It's going to help out the life of the engine too, because then that engine doesn't have to rev so high as you're hitting the higher speeds. If you're just running around town, no big deal. You're not going to hit the high RPMs for any length of time. But if you take it out on the highway and you go for a 2 or 3 hour ride or a day-long ride, or you start off cross country, well, by golly, you're going to have you're going to have an engine that's going to be running pretty high all the time. So definitely want to keep up on your oil, your coolant levels like that. So anyhow, overall, great vehicle. It's an entry-level vehicle, so you can make improvements to suit yourself and to make your ride enjoyable and just have a good time. I recommend it. If you want to get into three-wheel motorcycles, this is a good step into it. So I hope you have great experience with one. If you get it, enjoy. Thank you for stopping in and listening to me ramble on about my pros and cons. And you have a good old day. Come back anytime. Thanks.